Hey guys, it's Laney and welcome back to the shop. Well, this week kind of a twofer. I'm going to teach you guys how to make this game and message center. And I call it a game and message center because on one side we've got a checkerboard and on the other side we've got a chalkboard. And if you notice, the checkers don't fall off. It's because they're magnetized and it's meant to play while it's hanging on the wall. So stick around. I'll teach you how to make it. I'm just using a 1/4 inch sheet of birch plywood for the chalkboard side of this project. And what I'm going to do first is I just want to clean up one of the edges, and then I'm going to cut it down to an 18 by 18. Now the checkerboard side is going to be 16 by 16. I want to go ahead and make this a little bit big, and that way I can cut it down to its final size when I get everything together and see where I need to be. Alright, for the checkerboard, typically a standard checkerboard is a black and red squares, or in this sense light and dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some oak for my dark, because when it gets a finish on it, it's a red oak, so it'll get a little bit darker. And for the light squares, I'm going to use some aspen that I happen to have in the shop, and I've been needing to use it, and I think it'll be perfect for this project. So what I have some 1/4 inch strips, and you want your squares to be about 2 inches by 2 inches, and your whole board is going to be 16 by 16. So my aspen strips are a little bit wider, so I'm going to have to rip them down to 2 inches. Alright, I've got my sheets planed down to about 1/8 of an inch thick, and I'm ready to cut my squares so I can glue together my checkerboard. Now you want it to be about 1/8 of an inch thick, or even a little bit thinner, not much. 1/8 of an inch is fine. You just want it thin enough to where the magnetic checkers that you're going to use on here will be able to hold. So after a few tests and all, 1/8 of an inch worked fine. Alright guys, when it comes to making the checkerboard after you make your cross cuts, simply all you have to do is flip every other one. So now, because these are so thin, they're wanting to curl a little bit. So what I'm going to do is on every other one, I'm going to alternate that curl. And that way, when it glues together, it'll kind of even everything out. Now, to glue this together, I'm going to put some blue tape on the back side of each seam. Okay, once you have everything taped up, you should have something that looks like this. and the checkerboard. So now, to glue it together, I'm going to use a little trick that I saw on another YouTube channel, The Apprentice and the Journeyman, and the host of that channel, his name is Bob Simmons. Now, in one of his videos, he made a set of parallel clamps for clamping up and edge gluing boards. So I made a miniaturized set of those parallel clamps following his instructions. And simply, what you do is after the glue is applied and everything, these little clamps are screwed in to a crosscut board, and my little cross boards are the same thickness as my checkerboard. What you do is you just place them on here, and then with the simplest tap, you've got yourself a handy little clamp for clamping up small items. And that's plenty of clamping pressure. There's no gaps in between my seams. It's going to work out just great for clamping up this very thin checkerboard. Alright guys, the checkerboard's all glued up and done. I went ahead and sanded it to a 220. Now, I want to go ahead and I've got underneath this some sheet steel, some plated sheet steel. It's a 24 by 24 inch sheet. It's 26 gauge, which is real thin. You can pick it up at a hardware store. I got this for about $10. This is what's going to be the backer of our checkerboard. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the sheet steel down to size, down to the same size as our checkerboard. And we're going to epoxy the checkerboard to it. And that way it'll give the checkerboard a metal back, which will allow our rare earth magnets to stick. And our earth magnets are going to be inside of our checker pieces, and that way you can hang this thing on a wall and your checker pieces won't fall off. So we'll and that's what's going to give us its magnetic quality, is this sheet steel back that's going to be epoxied to the back of this. Okay, now that we have our sheet cut down, I'm going to use some 5-minute epoxy, and I'm going to, sporadically put a little bit here and there. I'm not going to coat the whole thing, and then we'll glue it together. And I'm just going to weight that down with some blocks. And let that sit up. Okay guys, I happen to have a 5/16 inch thick strip of mahogany left over from the last project. And what I ended up doing is I ran a kerf down the edge of it, the same width as the saw blade, and then I ripped off a 3/8 inch wide strip off of this piece that I had. And what I want to do is I want to make if I can fit it in there, a border all the way around this checkerboard before I put it inside of its maple frame. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to cut these border pieces. Alright, as you can see, I've got the mahogany frame gluing onto the checkerboard. I went ahead and added some blue tape just in case there was any glue squeeze that I didn't want it getting on the checkerboard. For the outside main frame of this checkerboard chalkboard combination, I went ahead and laminated 2 pieces of maple together, and I ripped it to 1 1/4 inches wide. Now on one side of the frame, I need to cut a rabbet out for this checkerboard to sit into. On the inside of the frame, all 4 frame pieces, I need to cut a groove for the chalkboard to fit into. And that's going to be not quite center, just a little off center, close to that rabbet, because on the outside edge, on the bottom piece of the frame only, I'm going to take this core box bit over to the router table, and I'm going to cut a little channel in here for a chalk holder. So the first step, let's get over to the table saw, set up the dado set, and cut this rabbet. Well, we're almost done. I've got the outer frame finished. All the pieces are cut, and right now it's dry fit. There's nothing glued. I just wanted to see how well my checkerboard fits in there, and I'm happy with it. Now, what I need to do is pop this out temporarily, flip it over, and I need to get the measurement for the chalkboard on how wide and high I need to cut it. So what I'm going to do to get that measurement inside these grooves, and let's see if you can see that groove in there where the chalkboard is going to sit. What I've got is 2 scrap pieces of wood of the same material that my chalkboard is made out of, and they fit nicely inside that channel. So I'm going to put one on one side and one on the other. I'm going to take a square, just a regular shop square, and when I have a nice fit, I'm going to take that square and just mark right up it, so it gives me a nice straight line. Now I can line up my lines again, clamp it, and that gives me the exact width what I need to cut my panel. So I can take this over to the table saw and use it to set up my fence as a gauge. So let's do that, and then we'll do the same thing for the length.